How many of you remember the message last Sunday? The sermon was about memory. Can we remember? Today, I'd like to speak about our eyesight. Could question, how good is our eyesight? Speaking about our spiritual sight, especially with the implications that have for our night vision. The older you get, the more your eyes begin to fade in their long-term destination to be closed. And when you start rolling the decades back behind you, you start rolling the eyeglasses on top of your nose. You start needing, first of all, it's like the 7 stages of grief. First one's denial. I remember those times when I denied I was losing my sight. I just needed more light. So when I would take that little print into strong sunlight, I could read it perfectly. So I knew I had no problem. The problem was I just needed light. And then after that came anger. Finally comes acceptance, and you go and get your reading glasses. Just temporary. Just go to the nearest grocery store and get those cheap +1, that's all I need. Then +2. Well, okay, $2.50. And little by little you creep up till you finally say, I think I need more than these reading glasses. And I'm still in denial, by the way. As long as we have these technological marvels, all you have to do is tweak your fingers and the letters get bigger and brighter. I don't need glasses. I don't know who's here today, but because of these floodlights in my eyes. The older we get, the harder it is to see the small print, the details. And yes, where our eyesight begins to fail, our brain fills in the details. You know, of course, that we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brain. Our brain is what interprets what we see, and it plays tricks on us. And we don't read the word and whether it's misspelled or not. We just look at our brain and says, that's that word, forget about it, just accept it because I say so. And so you skip over it, and your brain tells you what you're reading, not what your eye is actually seeing sometimes. And as our eyesight begins to fade, our brain fills in the information. Words that are misspelled. Sometimes we read totally wrong something. And the biggest problem, as I say, begins with light. Because the ability to see has to do with light. Yesterday, I went to help my son at the farm. He got another goat. We're into goats now. I sort of give up with sheep. I've been a pastor for I don't know how many decades now, 50 years, and I've finally given up with sheep. After my last lamb died, I said, forget about it. I mean, in my ministry, I mostly had goats anyway, so I said, might as well tend to them. And he was making a new little pen for the new mama goat. And so he needed something from the tools, so I went up to my tool shop up in Hebron. It was a nice, beautiful day outside. Thank God, after so much rain. And when I got into the shop, suddenly I went blind. I couldn't see a thing. I couldn't find what I was looking for. Of course, you know, when we come out of the bright sunlight, something happens. Something happens to our visions when we come inside to a darker place. And I turned on the light, mind you. It's a very strong light. But not when you come out of the sunlight. It was all dark. And it took, I don't know, a few minutes of just standing there and waiting. And suddenly, little by little, that's an oxymoron, isn't it? Suddenly, little by little. So let me make a retake on that. Little by little, suddenly I began to see. And I found what I was looking for. And spiritual vision is very similar to this. The brain and spiritual vision. We've seen so much. Our brain thinks it knows what it's all about. And things become hidden in plain sight. There was a lady in my house who once forgot where she had put her glasses. Until somebody in the house said, "Aren't you wearing them?" Hidden in plain sight. I'm sure that's happened to you. Things are right there, and you just can't see them. And it's bizarre sometimes in life how our mind just blocks things away that they're just plain to see. That someone comes in and he can see it, but we can't see it. There's a man in my house who can't find something in the closet. And the woman of the house says, "Can't you see it?" And the man in the house says, "It's not there." And the woman in the house says, "It's there, I put it there, can't you see it?" And the man of the house says, "I tell you, I can't find it because it's not there." So the woman of the house comes and grabs it and says, "See, it's right here." And the man of the house slinks away sheepishly, wondering whether he needs a new pair of glasses so he might see. Strange house I live in. Or maybe some of you have similar men and women living in your house. Right, there we go. Sometimes little kids see things. Many times little children have invisible playmates. They talk to, they play with. Is that childish imaginations, or they're actually angels? And it's our blindness that we cannot see those invisible friends that they used to see in heaven, where they came from, where their spirits came from. But our mind is sort of blocked out, that part of the existence we had in God before we were born. We look and we don't see. Just like that man in the house looks at everything in the closet and he can't see what's obviously there. Because our mind has a way of blocking things. Especially things that we see very often. For a while we pastored 2 churches simultaneously, about 500 miles apart, in different cities, for 2 years. That was quite an experience. And we rented an apartment, beautiful little apartment with a beautiful sight of a lake. And the first time we walked into that place, we said, yes, we want to rent this. The view was just amazing. In Carlos Paz, you could see the mountains and the big lake there. And we moved in, and every day we're there, it seems, you just walked by and just stopped a second and just enjoyed the view. Look at every detail, the boats on the lake, the cars coming, going, the houses. But that was until slowly, with the passing of days and weeks, the mind had already knew what was there. And came a time we just walked by that nice big window and didn't even glance a thought of looking and enjoying the view. Oh yes, some days if there was a special sunset, very beautiful, we'd stop and look at the sunset. But the mind sort of blocked that image. It wasn't special anymore. After a few weeks, I didn't admire the beauty anymore. Even if Jesus and angels were jumping up and down and walking on the water, my mind said, don't look at that. Move on, nothing to see here. That's just a lake. Our memory sees, but it doesn't check to see if there's anything new. Because we know. Seen that, done that, got the t-shirt. We know what it's all about. And spiritually, the same thing happens. You might have a beautiful decorated house. You might have little teacups from England. Little knickknacks from other places in the world, at least we do, that we've gone to. But when's the last time I've looked at those knickknacks? Oh yes, I've been in the cupboard to get something. Yes, I've walked right up. But did I look at them? No. Then a visitor walks in. Says, oh my goodness, look at those things on your shelf. Oh, this. And I said, oh yeah, that's from Africa. Oh, this. Yeah, this is from the Queen's own tea-making company. Cups, making cups. And this is from here, and this is from there. And suddenly we look at it again. When's the last time you have looked and appreciated the knickknacks in your home? We look, but we don't see. And things are hidden because we cannot see. Oh yes, if someone's missing or someone steals something or something is broken by somebody, you might notice that something's missing in that scene. You say, well, something's wrong with this scene. Just like a security camera is constantly comparing the pixels in that image with the new pixels. If there's something missing or something added, immediately it'll sound the alarm. Our mind and and our sight don't always concur. In Matthew chapter 17, suddenly we find the story in verse 1 where Jesus took Peter, James, and John and brought them into a high mountain, and suddenly was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Blinding light, spiritual light, revelation. Now this comes in the midst of Jesus' daily ministry, teaching, healing, ministering to people's needs. Then for a moment, the blinding light, and Peter says, it's good for us to be here. Let's make 3 tents. One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. Blinded by the supreme light. So blinded he could see nothing else. Everything Jesus had taught, everything Jesus had done meant nothing. To him it was, let's just make 3 tents. 3 tabernacles. Strange thing was he didn't ask for 4. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. What's he going to do? Go back to fishing? Did he forget everything? Blinding light. The problem with light, the problem with spiritual light, even though it can become so blinding as to totally change our concept of things, change our vision, change our perspective of the future, as it did with Peter. Now it's all about a shrine up in the mountain. That's what he thought. You know, our eye is a wonderful thing. Our eye has this mechanism. It's called a pupil. The more light you throw into it, the more it closes and the less we can see. These sharp lights of the spotlights make my pupils contract. In order to see you clearly, I have to, there we go. Wait for it. There we go. Uh-oh. The pupils contract. And we lose a little bit of sight. We lose our ability to see at night. Just like it happened when I came into the shop from the sunlight. My pupils had gotten so small that I could not see when I got into the shop, even though the light was on, until my pupils dilated again. The light that gives us darkness. The light that creates blindness. In darkness, you can see the smallest light. You can see a candle from 10 miles away. It was one such candle in a window that saved us from getting lost one day with my brother when we were young men. In this youth camp where I was just a few days, I guess, ago, it was 2 hours away from the bright city of Cordoba up in the Sierra Mountains, Calamuchita, and incredible sky at night. You can see so clearly the sky, the stars, the Milky Way. I don't even remember when's the last time I saw it here except in a picture. It was a total absence of light that made you be able to see even the tiniest little star shining. Because with the blinding lights, you cannot see the stars. In Genesis 15, in verse 5, it says that God brought Abraham outside and said, "Look now towards the heaven. See if you can number the stars." He said, "That's how many your seed shall be." Abraham couldn't see. The very next morning, when he got up and looked up, the sun was out. He could see nothing because his night vision was overwhelmed by the light of the sun. That vision he had the night before of millions of descendants faded to maybe one morning star that could still be seen in the heavens. Yes, light impairs our vision, our sensitivity. To the vision that God gives, our sensitivity is taken away by the light that we have received. Light, spiritual light, just like our natural vision, is very soon morphed, would be the correct word, by our brain. And spiritual light becomes natural understanding. It just sort of seamlessly seemed to go from blinding light to knowledge. And our brain, because it cannot process spiritual light as our spirit does, our brain processes light that we've received from heaven and makes it into knowledge. Knowledge of God, knowledge of the Bible, knowledge of the way things must be, knowledge of things we must do, be it forms in praising, or forms in worship, or the way we do things religiously, time and time and time again, that becomes a substitute for light, spiritual light. In other words, we can have so much light at one time that blinds us. And we get mind blindness. And that light begins to change, as I said, to knowledge. Our retinas contract, and we begin to see dimly. Not only do we become blind, that we cannot see, but it also affects our ears, that we cannot hear. And the past bright heavenly light that we once saw, that once changed our life, that once directed our steps, that once inspired us to leave everything behind and follow Jesus, in that spontaneity of the vision, of the words that we heard, with time, we cannot see it. We know, but we cannot see. And if someone said, would you be willing today to do that? You'd probably say yes, but inside you'd be saying no. Could you uproot your life as you did at one time? No, because now that light is just knowledge, and knowledge is processed by your brain. Can you still see as clearly as when you first, in the darkness of your life, saw the light? Or has that been replaced by religion, by forms, by knowledge? That old hymn that once in a while we sing, that says, at the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my soul rolled away. Last week I said that it's at Calvary where we receive the memories again that we've forgotten. It's at Calvary where we first saw the light. In that darkness, the stars shone so brightly. Hope springed eternal in the darkness of our life. And today, it's just a song, just a hymn. It doesn't impact us like it did before. We see so much. We know so much that it makes us blind to our youthful vision. Amazing grace, says the other hymn, was blind, but now I see. But now that I see, am I becoming blind? Is the abundance of light that I've received been so processed that I've become stagnant? There are people here that moved all across the United States, that left their jobs, that left their education, because they heard a star shine. Yes, I said correctly. They heard a star shine, and they followed that star. Would you do that today? Would you pick up the tent stakes and move to the other side of this world? Or has your light so become knowledge that you begin to weigh the consequences? That you begin to weigh the finances? That you begin to weigh healthcare issues? You first jumped. Now you measure. Oh, how the light has become knowledge. So much so that the night vision, where we first saw the light, is impaired. In John chapter 9, Jesus said, I have come into this world that the blind might see. But then he said, and those who see may become blind. Oh, I know. And you probably do too, what it is to have been blind and receive the sight. But maybe you don't know that you are blind to that sight, that you see with your mind, that you see not with your heart, but you see with your knowledge. You see with what light has become. And in Matthew 6, again, Jesus said, if the light that is in you be darkness, how great is that darkness? And then again in Luke 11:35, take heed, be careful. Take heed, therefore, that the light which is in you does not become or be not darkness. For centuries, the Jews expected the coming of a Messiah. Because one day the prophets received such great revelation from heaven. Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Yes, that spiritual revelation that shocked so many hearts and minds as they heard it. Slowly time eroded its value. And for centuries, it became the chant of every young girl when she came to age of being able to conceive. It was a chant and a prayer. It was a memory and a prayer. They would quote Isaiah, behold, a virgin shall conceive, and young virgin Jewish maidens would quote it and pray, and may I be the mother of the Messiah, and then go about their chores. And next month with the reminder that they could conceive, behold, a virgin shall conceive, because it's written in Isaiah. Oh Lord, may I be such a virgin and bring forth the Messiah. Then go back to their chores. It was so common. A virgin should conceive. Lord, may it be me. Amen. Goodbye. Service over. And one day, an angel appeared to Mary in Luke 1:34. Behold, you shall conceive. And she said, who, me? How can this be? I don't know a man. Wait, you were just saying, behold, the virgin shall conceive. Oh, Lord, may it be me. May I be the virgin that brings forth the Messiah. Amen. Goodbye. Hey, it's you. Who, me? It cannot be. I don't know any man. See how light can become knowledge, a knowledge that conflicts with our mind. When push comes to shove, when the light tells us do this, our mind suddenly says, hey, wait a minute, I was just kidding. You can't do this. No. Are you sure? Is that God? Is God calling you? No. Go back to sleep. You've got too much to lose. Your job, your home, your finances, your health, and blah, 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 blah. Light has been hijacked by religion. Vision has been hijacked by reality. How can it be? Our brains quench divine light. For centuries, the Jewish leaders had expected the Messiah and prayed for the Messiah like the young maidens. One day, when the Messiah revealed himself, we read in John chapter 11, the story of Lazarus. And in verse 43, Jesus raising his voice in crying out to the man that had been dead for 4 days, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound head and foot with grave clothes, his face bound with a napkin. He came floating out of the cave. He couldn't walk, he was bound. Many of the Jews, verse 45, which came to Mary, when they had seen what Jesus did, believed on him. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them the things that Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what shall we do? For this man does many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. For centuries, praying that the Messiah would come, and now was one who said he was sent of God with miracles to prove it, and now had raised a dead man. All the light of centuries that should have shouted and jumped and said, the day has come. Who cares about our houses? Who cares about our nation? Who cares about my comfort? About my place in society? My job security? Let's go follow him. All they care about when light, now knowledge only, was confronted with the call of heaven, follow me. It all came down to their position, to what they had managed to achieve in life and their unwillingness to part with the comfort that life provided for them. And then one of them, verse 49, called Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year. It seems that high priest office, which used to be a lifelong position, had now, in the time of the Romans, become just a short time. Caiaphas said to them, verse 49, said to the Pharisees, these were the most learned in scriptures. These were the ones supposedly with the most enlightened of all the population. Caiaphas said to them, you know nothing at all. And it says, this he said, this he spoke, verse 51, not of himself, but being a high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation. The word of heaven came down to the learned, enlightened men of God to say, you know nothing at all. The light had become darkness. Their knowledge had made them blind. And the worst part, that their blindness cut them off from Christ Jesus' presence. Because we read in the next verse, verse 54, Jesus therefore walked no more among the Jews openly, but he went to a country near the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim. Jesus was forced to go to a different country because their light had become knowledge, and their knowledge was set out to kill the Messiah. Because the verse before Jesus moved to another country says, from that day forth they took counsel together to put him to death. Our knowledge, our brain, is our biggest enemy. We think we know, we think we understand. We even become obstinate and intolerant in our opinions, in our prejudices. Light, once so beautiful, once so precious, becomes so banal, can become such blindness. We hear from God, yes, I know. This, yeah, I know. How about this? Yes, I know. I know it all. Look up. Do you see anything? No, there's nothing new. Look up. Don't you remember when one day you looked up and you were amazed with all that was up there? Do you remember? Do you remember the night vision? The vision before light became knowledge. Do you remember? I said last Sunday, do you remember the smell of freshly washed garments in blood? Can you remember? Has our light so become knowledge, so become custom, so become forms, that it's separated us from the giver of that light? Is he here as we sang? Can we see him? Is our heart deeply moved at the thought of him? Or is he in another country where there's darkness? That's just a question. That's not an assertion. Is Jesus, his presence here or waiting for us in another country? If it were so, would you uproot your life? Some here have uprooted their life several times, 2 or 3 times already. Would you uproot it once more? I'm not saying to do it. I'm just laying the question. Or do things so have you tied down that your knowledge blocks the arrival of light? It's there, but I cannot see it. Last week I reminded you of an old pop song in 1984. Do you remember when we met? Do you remember? Do the stars still speak to you? Can you even see them anymore? Jesus said it's the world that blinds us. He says the world has blinded their eyes. Things that happen, politics, news, events, the things surrounding our life, the activities, the problems, the needs, the circumstances, everything around us. For the young people, the education. It blinds you. It blinds our eyes. It's just that things shine so brightly. I mean, you know, if you don't work, you can't live. It's like we're trapped in a place that if we wanted to, we couldn't leave. And that same thing traps us in our thoughts. We come to church. We know, we sing, we raise our hands, we praise, we get into this rhythm, if you want to call it that. But I'm asking, does that rhythm blind our eyes to the simplicity, to the smell, to the beauty? When's the last time you saw a sunset? When's the last time that name smelled like a fresh mowed lawn? Do you remember those songs? Jesus, 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 there's just something about that name. Do you remember? Does that name make you skip a beat to your heart? When you walk in the doors, is there an expectation? Or is it just a song? Waymaker, you're here. Is he? Do you expect him to be here? Kings and kingdoms will pass away. Our life, things we do, but there's something about his name. Did you walk in expecting to see something out of that window that you haven't seen before? Or do you just expect to sing, to hear a message, to go home to eat, and then your next week starts over again? God, if so, forgive me. I've lost my night sight. The light has become knowledge, and knowledge has blinded my eyes. I want to find you here. I want to find you here. I found you in many other places in the world, and you're there. But I want to find you here. Father, for Jesus' sake, let not the light, precious light, that you've placed within us, let it not become darkened by the world, by our knowledge. I pray. But may the sweet, sweet smell of heaven arouse my memory. Let my expectations be as Abram's, when he looked up the sky and tried to count your promise, knowing that there was so much you had for him, that in a lifetime he would not be able to find. So he began to look for the answer beyond life, to a city whose builder and maker was God. Jesus, renew my vision. Remind me of the stars I saw in my youth. The promise is yet to be fulfilled. The road that remains to be walked, that the time I have left seems so short in order to complete it. Take us, Lord, to that place where heavenly darkness that you dwell in, where all earthly knowledge and light is shaded, and we are surrounded by the darkness of eternity. And our iris of our hearts begin to open again. For it is written, in the midst of darkness you abide. Lord, let the light of this world, the light of everything I know about you, every revelation that's become knowledge, return me to the place where I can be born once more into light, where nothing matters but you. Do you want to forget? Or do you want to remember? The one who called you. The one who in darkness spoke clearly to your heart. If you so feel, if you so desire, if you so long, I invite you to come and sing his name with me. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There's just something about that name. You're my master. You're my Savior. Jesus. Like the fragrance after the rain. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Let all heavens and earth proclaim. Kings and kingdoms, everything about our life today is going to pass away. The time is so short. The distance so great. I don't know if I have enough time. I don't want to stay in the prison of knowledge, in the prison of my circumstances, of my life, of my surroundings, in the prison of the impossible. When I was called by a God of impossibles, a God of miracles. The prison of examining everything by its logic, by its reality. I followed him, not knowing where I went as Abraham, not knowing what I would eat or wherewith I would be sustained. Would I now, from a prison of reality, say, this is all my life is about, and forget what I saw when I raised my eyes to heaven. Forget what light was when I could see it and feel it and understand it. That rain. Jesus. Jesus. Jesus, there's just something about that name. Jesus, 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 there's just something about that name. Oh, Jesus, 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 there's just something about that name. Jesus. Lord, with that name on our lips, I pray that everyone that is standing with me today as a testimony, that your light shine fresh upon my heart. I know nothing. I know nothing about heaven. I know nothing. I want to know nothing. That your light may shine softly from the heavens, and I might learn fresh truths, that the revelation not be contaminated by knowledge or kidnapped by my mind. I don't need to understand. I just need to obey. I don't need to ask how. I just need to walk. Lord, you are calling. You are calling. But is there anyone to listen? I want to listen. I want to listen. Call again. Open the ears of my understanding. I want to hear what the stars are saying to me. Look to the heavens. Leave aside what your brain is saying and look at the heavens. Away from the lights, the spotlights of life. Before tomorrow's alarm sounds and the world comes crashing down upon you and you're trapped again. But for a moment, escape from that cave. Forget tomorrow will ever come. Come out. Come out from the city. Look up to the skies.